I was hanging Christmas lights on the house. I'd almost completely remodeled with my own money when I heard my sister say, "I don't want to spend Christmas with that loser." My mom replied, "Just bear with it a little longer. Just until Marina pays for the last few details, then we'll cut her out of our lives." I froze on the ladder, a string of lights tangled in my hands. Outside, dusk was falling, and it was that dry December cold you get in Denver. Not unbearable, but enough to numb your fingers if you'd been working for a while. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just finished putting up the lights. I smiled as if I hadn't heard a thing, and started thinking with a clear head. My name is Marina Hayes, and I'm 34 years old. I own a construction and remodeling company. It's not huge, but it's mine. I built it from the ground up, and it's doing well. I've never been married. Between supervising projects, dealing with clients, reviewing budgets, coordinating crews, and solving problems every day, I almost never had time to think about relationships. My family was small. My dad, Roger, owns a coffee shop in Boulder. It's one of those places with mismatched tables and chairs, homemade pastries in a simple display case, and regulars who come in every morning to order the exact same thing. He's had that business for over 20 years. My mom, Irene, used to help a bit with the administration, but she stopped when I started earning good money. My younger sister, Brenda, is 31. She's married to Patrick Urbina, a lawyer at a mid-sized firm. They live in a nice house in a comfortable part of town and always pretended to be better off than they were. I lived in my own condo in Capitol Hill, nothing luxurious, but it was mine in the way that mattered most to me. I paid for it, and that was more than I could say for a lot of things in my family. Because there was something no one ever said out loud during family dinners, I paid for almost everything. My company had big contracts and good cash flow. It wasn't that I had money to spare, but I could cover big expenses if I organized myself. The problem was, every time I earned more, my family found a new urgency, a new whim, or a new way to make me feel guilty. The family trip to Hawaii the previous year, I paid for it. It was almost $15,000 for flights, hotel, meals, and treats for everyone during peak season. My mom wanted a designer handbag for her birthday. I bought it for her, $3,000 for a bag she used twice and then left in the closet. The Christmas getaway to a big cabin in Aspen also came out of my account. Between lodging, meals, a driver, and extras, it was another $10,000. Plus, months earlier, I had transferred $20,000 to my mom to reserve family vacations for the following year. She told me it was better if she handled the payments because she was more patient when checking lodging, flights, and dates. I believed her, as always. But the biggest thing was my parents' house. I paid for a huge renovation. A new kitchen, 2 full bathrooms, waterproofing, new plumbing, electrical installation, flooring, carpentry, window frames, paint, light fixtures, and roof repair. For 2 years, I transferred money to suppliers, contractors, and master craftsmen. Between invoices, down payments, and last-minute payments, I ended up putting over $70,000 into that house. My parents lived in a place I had practically rebuilt, but for my family, somehow, I was still the disappointment. They called my company "your little company" as if it were a hobby. They joked that I worked surrounded by men in hard hats, that I always had dust on my shoes, or that my hands no longer looked like a lady's. My mom said construction wasn't for women. Brenda repeated that no serious man would want to marry someone who spent all day among cement blueprints and suppliers. Patrick, with his self-assured lawyer's voice, said I should dedicate myself to something finer. My dad didn't mock me. He did something I confused with kindness for years. He stayed silent, looked at his plate, changed the subject, or said there was no need to argue. In that silence, he also left me alone many times. I listened, smiled, and kept paying. A week before Christmas, I went to my parents' house in Boulder to help with the decorations. My dad had asked me to put the lights on the entrance, around the windows, and on the facade roof. He said I was the only one who knew how to do it right, without breaking anything or leaving wires hanging. I was up on a ladder by the living room window when I heard voices inside. The window was barely open, and the sound came out clearly. It was my mom and Brenda. "I don't want to spend Christmas with that loser," Brenda said. I felt my body tense. "I know, honey," my mom replied, "but we have to be patient. Just a little longer." "How much longer?" "The remodel is finished. The house is perfect. Why do we have to keep pretending? Patrick says we should wait until after the holidays. Then we'll have Marina pay for the last few details, and after that, we can cut contact with her completely." I gripped the ladder so hard my fingers hurt. "I'm embarrassed to have a sister like that," Brenda said. "Always smelling like a construction site, talking about budgets, as if that makes her important." "It's almost over," my mom said. "Just hang in there." "And what about the inheritance?" Brenda asked. "Patrick is already looking into how to arrange things. I've already changed my accounts, my savings, and what's in my name. The rest we need to manage with your dad. Don't worry. Marina won't get a cent from me." They both laughed. I climbed down the ladder slowly, without making a sound. I kept putting up the lights as if nothing had happened. My hands moved on their own. I tangled wires, adjusted hooks, arranged ornaments while my head tried to process what I had just heard. They were using me after I paid for trips, luxuries, and a huge renovation. They planned to cut me out of their lives, and on top of that, they were laughing at me. I didn't go in to confront them. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of my reaction. I finished decorating the house, said goodbye with a calm smile, and left. A few days later was Christmas dinner. I arrived on time, with gifts for everyone, as always. My dad was proudly showing off the remodeled kitchen to some aunts and uncles. He touched the new cabinets, pointed out the countertops, talked about the lighting as if he had coordinated every detail. "Marina did a really good job organizing all of this," he said at some point. It was the closest he came to acknowledging what I had paid for. Patrick found me near the drink table. "Marina, how's your little construction company doing?" "It's going well," I replied. "You should think about moving into real estate development. That's a whole other level. Construction is a lot of operations, a lot of people, a lot of wear and tear. You could do something more sophisticated." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. He smiled superiorly and walked away. During dinner, I served plates. I smiled at my dad's jokes. I told my mom she looked very elegant in the dress I had bought her, and I acted as if everything was normal. Inside, I was burning with anger, but every minute that passed confirmed something. They knew me very little, and believed I would break down in front of everyone. After dinner, my mom said she was tired and went to sleep for a bit. My dad fell asleep in front of the TV. Brenda and Patrick left around 9 o'clock. I stayed the night. It wasn't unusual. Many times after family gatherings, I'd spend the night in my old room. But this time, I had a reason. When the house fell silent, I went down to the small study where my mom kept her laptop. We sometimes used that computer for family payments, reservations, and house documents. My mom had given me the password more than once because, according to her, I was the one who understood those things. Her email session was still open. First, I looked for proof of the vacations she had supposedly reserved with the $20,000. I found no reservations, no flights, no lodging. What I found was a bank notice about a transfer to a separate account and several emails where my mom talked about that money as if it were hers. Then I searched for my name. It didn't take long to find the rest. There were emails between my mom and Patrick from over a year ago. They had been planning everything for a long time. Patrick didn't write like a movie villain. He wrote like a lawyer with cold, measured, careful phrases, but just as clear if you knew how to read them. One of his emails, dated 13 months prior, read, "It's best to maintain a good relationship with Marina until the renovation is closed and paid for. After that, family arrangements can be reevaluated without affecting asset agreements." Another email from my mom said, "How much longer do I have to pretend interest in her company? I'm tired of hearing her talk about construction and suppliers." I kept scrolling. There were dozens of messages, dates, plans, ways to keep me close while I kept paying for things. They didn't always say it in so many words, but the meaning was the same. I was useful as long as I put in money. Then I found an email chain with a name that chilled me to the bone: Henry Peterson. He was an old college friend of my dad's. He had been to the house many times. I had known him since I was a kid. I opened one message, then another, then another. My mom had been having an affair with Henry for years. The messages talked about waiting for the right moment, starting a life together, how my dad no longer paid attention to her, and how the remodeled house would be perfect for their new beginning. A message from Henry said, "Once Roger's situation is resolved and Patrick finishes guiding him through the documents, we'll finally be able to be together without hiding." My mom replied, "I can't wait." With everything Marina put into the house, its value went up a lot. Brenda gets what's mine and what we can move, and we start from scratch. I sat in the dark study, reading email after email, and something inside me turned cold. Not only did they want to cut me out of the family, they had been using me. They were betraying my dad and making fun of both of us while doing it. I took screenshots of everything, saved copies to a secure cloud, emailed the files to my own account, and downloaded the proofs I found. I didn't alter anything. I didn't respond to anything. I closed the laptop, went up to my room, and lay down. I barely slept that night, but by dawn, I had made a decision. The first business day after Christmas, I went to see a lawyer. I had found an attorney specializing in family matters, assets, and property disputes. His name was Robert Anderson, and he was able to see me that same afternoon. I showed him all the emails, the screenshots, my bank statements, the proofs of every payment I made for the renovation, and the transfers for the vacations. Mr. Anderson reviewed the documents calmly, then leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. "It's a complicated situation," he told me. "The house is in your dad's name and predates the marriage. Even though you paid for the renovation, there's no contract stating it was a loan or that you'd receive a share of the property, so you can't claim anything for the house itself. We could look into reclaiming some payments, but it would be a long and difficult process. What you do have is evidence of manipulation, breach of trust, and financial movements that can serve another strategy. But we have to act carefully. And the emails? Save them, don't alter them. Don't publish them. If you decide to confront them, do it without putting yourself at risk or getting into trouble. And if your dad is going to use them, he should have his own lawyer review them first." I left his office frustrated, but not defeated. If I couldn't recover my money immediately through legal channels, I would at least make sure I understood the full extent of everything. I didn't want to confront my family with suspicions. I wanted to do it with facts. Over the next few weeks, I dedicated myself to organizing evidence. I requested duplicate invoices from suppliers. I downloaded proofs from the electronic interbank payment system. I reviewed contracts, signed budgets, confirmation messages, and bank statements. I made a spreadsheet with every dollar I had spent on the house. Custom kitchen, $11,000. 2 full bathrooms, $15,000. Waterproofing and roof repair, $12,000. Electrical installation and plumbing, $10,000. The rest went into flooring, paint, carpentry, window frames, light fixtures, minor permits, labor, and finishes. The total was exactly $73,200. It wasn't an emotional figure, it was a documented figure. I had receipts for everything: invoices, transfers, contracts, messages, and signed budgets. Nothing was verbal. In mid-January, I found something else. My mom messaged me asking me to resend a supplier's proof because, according to her, she wanted to close the house file properly. It was almost offensive that she was still asking me for order when what they had done to me was a complete moral mess. Searching for that proof in the backups I already had, I found an exported conversation from her email between her, Brenda, and Patrick. Patrick had sent drafts and comments about accounts, wills, and movements they wanted to present to my dad as simple procedures. In one of those messages, Brenda wrote, "Since the renovation is over, now we can distance ourselves from Marina without it looking too weird." My mom replied, "I've already changed my will, my accounts, my things, and what's in my name will go to you. Patrick will help me get Roger to sign what's left. Marina gets nothing from me." Brenda replied, "After all she paid, not a cent. Let her keep her little company." I read that line several times, not because I needed to be convinced, there was nothing left to convince. I read it because sometimes a phrase finally kills a hope you didn't even know was still alive. Brenda's birthday was at the end of January, 2 weeks later. They always celebrated it at my parents' house with food, cake, and the whole family around. That year wasn't going to be any different. I used those 2 weeks to prepare. I organized all the evidence on a tablet. I made a simple presentation with emails, bank statements, an expense sheet, proofs, and messages. I practiced what I was going to say. I practiced keeping my voice firm. I practiced not getting caught up in their yelling. I also looked for Lisa Miller, Henry's wife. I had seen her a few times at family gatherings, but we weren't close. Still, I knew how to contact her. I sent her copies of the messages between Henry and my mom. I didn't explain. I didn't add insults. I just sent her the evidence and let her decide what to do. She didn't respond, but I knew she had received it. On Brenda's birthday, I woke up early, showered, and put on my most formal suit. A black blazer, a crisp white shirt, and dress pants. I looked like I was going to a meeting with investors, not a family birthday. I arrived at my parents' house at the exact time. My mom opened the door. "Marina, how elegant." "Everything's fine," I replied. "I'm coming from seeing a client." She accepted it without asking more questions. The dining room was already set. My dad was in the kitchen preparing appetizers. Brenda and Patrick were in the living room, sitting on the couch, looking at their phones. "Hey, sis," Brenda said without looking up. "You're so formal." "Thanks." I sat at the head of the table. Normally my dad occupied that spot, but no one said anything. We made light conversation while waiting for the food. My dad brought out the dishes, and everyone sat down. Brenda was in a good mood. She laughed. She talked about a trip she wanted to take with Patrick. She commented on how well the house had turned out for my parents after the renovation. My mom listened proudly, as if that house wasn't filled with my money. When everyone had food on their plates and drinks served, I stood up. "I want to toast to something this family has been avoiding for a long time," I said. "The truth." My mom smiled, but her mouth tightened. I put my glass on the table and took out my tablet. "Before we eat, I want to show you something." Patrick frowned. "Marina, can it wait? It's Brenda's birthday." "No," I replied. "It can't wait." I connected the tablet to the living room TV. It took a few seconds for the image to appear, and that silence was worse than any scream. "What are you doing?" my mom asked. Her voice no longer sounded sweet. I put Patrick's email on the screen. "It's best to maintain a good relationship with Marina until the renovation is closed and paid for," I read aloud. "After that, family arrangements can be reevaluated without affecting asset agreements." The room became motionless. I moved to the next message. "How much longer do I have to pretend interest in her company? I'm tired of hearing her talk about construction and suppliers." I looked at my mom. "You wrote that." She opened her mouth but said nothing. I moved to the conversation with Brenda and Patrick. "Since the renovation is over, now we can distance ourselves from Marina without it looking too weird," I read. Brenda lowered her gaze. I continued. "Marina gets nothing from me." Then I moved to the last message. "After all she paid, not a cent. Let her keep her little company." No one moved. Patrick picked up his phone. "Don't delete anything, Patrick," I told him. "I already have copies." I opened the spreadsheet. "This is every dollar I spent remodeling this house. Kitchen, bathrooms, roof, waterproofing, plumbing, electrical installation, flooring, carpentry, window frames, paint. $73,200. I have proofs for everything." My dad looked at the screen with his mouth slightly open. "What is this?" he asked. "What they never wanted to tell you." I moved to the vacation proofs. "And here are the $20,000 I transferred to Mom to reserve family vacations. No reservations, no flights, no lodging. Just a transfer to a separate account, and emails where she talks about that money as if it were hers." My mom stood up. "This is a misunderstanding. Marina, you're taking everything out of context. Sit down, Irene, my dad said. His voice was low, but so hard that my mom obeyed. I opened the next group of screenshots. And there's something else. Mom has been with Henry Peterson for years. My dad's face changed. I put the messages between my mom and Henry on the screen. Yes, Dad, Henry. Your college friend. They planned to start a new life when the documents were settled, and Brenda received whatever Mom could leave her. My dad's face turned red. He stood up so fast that the chair fell backward and hit the floor. 30 years, he said, his voice trembling. 30 years of marriage. And you were with Henry? With my friend? Roger, please, my mom began. Was all this renovation for him? My dad asked, getting louder. Did you want to fix up my house with my daughter's money, and then live here with him? It's not like that. Then how is it? He turned to me. Show me the messages. All of them. I gave him the tablet. My dad began to read. His hands trembled. With each message, his breathing became heavier. You stole from our daughter, he said. You used her money. You planned to take what was rightfully hers from your share, and you also wanted me to sign things to leave me out while you ran off with Henry. My mom started to cry. You never looked at me. All you cared about was that coffee shop. I was alone. My dad put both hands on the dining room table. It was a table I had custom-made 2 years earlier from reclaimed wood, strong and heavy. He pushed it in anger. One end hit the floor. Dishes slid, glasses fell, and food spilled everywhere. Plates shattered. Wine spilled onto the wood. Everyone jumped back. My mom screamed. Brenda grabbed Patrick's arm. I stayed seated, watching. My dad remained in the middle of the mess, breathing heavily. Then he turned around and left the dining room. I heard his footsteps going upstairs. Then a door slammed shut. Brenda and Patrick looked at each other. Patrick picked up his jacket. We're leaving. They left the house without another word. I was left alone with my mom in the destroyed dining room. There was food on the floor, glass shards, broken plates, and the twisted table against a chair. You ruined everything, my mom said. Her makeup ran down her face. You destroyed this family. I stood up and put away my tablet. No, Mom. I didn't break anything. I just stopped covering it up. And now what am I going to do? That's no longer my problem. I walked out carefully, avoiding the glass and spilled food. I got in my car and drove home. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I was happy. There was nothing happy about seeing your family break apart at a table full of spilled dishes. I slept because, for the first time in a long time, I no longer had to pretend I didn't see what was happening. I didn't open messages from my family for 2 weeks. I kept their conversations silenced and threw myself into work. My company had 3 big projects going on at the same time, and I dedicated myself completely. 12-hour days on site, meetings with clients, contract reviews, coordinating crews, calls with suppliers. For the first time in a long time, I ended several days without feeling like someone was waiting for me with another bill. When I finally checked those messages, I had 14 from my mom. The first ones were furious. How dare you humiliate us like that? You had no right to air private things. You're a bad daughter. Then they changed tone. You don't understand the whole situation. There were reasons for what we did. We need to talk. The last ones were desperate. Please answer. I'm sorry. Forgive me. The last message, sent the day before, said, Henry left me. He's trying to fix things with Lisa. I have no one. I need you. I looked at that message for a while. Then I typed a reply. My lawyer will send a formal notification for you to stop contacting me. I don't want to have contact with you. Don't write to me again. I blocked her. There were also messages from Brenda. Forgive me, Marina. I made a horrible mistake. Patrick and I want to help you. He can review your company's contracts for free. Let us fix this, please. We're sisters. Even in her apology, they tried to offer me something that benefited them, as if after everything, I could sit across from Patrick and ask him for legal help. I forwarded the entire conversation to my lawyer and asked him to also send a notification to Brenda and Patrick to stop contacting me. I didn't want threats. I didn't want scandals. I just wanted to leave a record that I didn't want to deal with them again. Then I saw a message from my dad. Only one. Marina, I need proof about your mom to talk to my lawyer. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I sent him copies of the messages, emails, and proofs I had. I also told him to talk to his lawyer before using any document. He replied, "Thank you. I'm going to file for divorce. I'm going to fix what's in my hands." I didn't answer him immediately. I had nothing to promise him at that moment. The process didn't resolve overnight. There were meetings with lawyers, paperwork, arguments, calls, and weeks where my dad seemed older every time I saw him. But there was too much evidence, and my mom couldn't deny almost anything. The affair with Henry, the diverted money, the plans with Brenda and Patrick, the messages about the assets, everything was documented. My dad's lawyer was firm. It wasn't just infidelity, it was financial manipulation, deception, misuse of family money, and a strategy to benefit at my expense and his. As the process progressed, my mom had to leave the house. At first, she said it would be temporary, then she understood she wasn't coming back. I learned from my dad's lawyer that she rented a small apartment in a more distant area, a simple place with thin walls and maintenance issues. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. Over the months, the legal agreement was finalized. My mom kept only the portion of savings that corresponded to her according to the agreement. The house stayed with my dad because it was in his name before the marriage. The coffee shop was also his. What Irene had tried to arrange with Patrick fell apart when everything came to light. My dad was devastated, not so much by losing my mom, but by understanding that 30 years of his life had been filled with lies. His wife had cheated on him with his best friend. His younger daughter had helped cover everything up. His son-in-law had participated in the legal plans. And his elder daughter, who had given the most to the family, had been used as an open account. Shortly after the process began, my dad's lawyer called me. My dad had changed his will. Everything he owned went to me: the house, the coffee shop, and his assets. Brenda was completely cut out. She knew about Henry. She knew about my mom's plans. She knew they were using me, and she never said anything. For my dad, that was the final blow. After updating the will, my dad sent me a message. "Marina, forgive me. I should have realized. I should have protected you. I won't ask you to forgive me today. I just want you to know that I won't look away anymore." I thought about it for several days. He hadn't been part of the plan. He had also been a victim, in a different way. We had both trusted people who used us. I agreed to see him for lunch at his coffee shop. At first, it was awkward. We sat across from each other with coffee and simple sandwiches, not knowing what to say. There was so much pain between us that any phrase seemed too small. "I'm sorry," he finally said, "for everything. For not paying attention, for letting them treat you the way they did, for not defending you when they made fun of your work." I didn't know what to answer at first. Then we talked for an hour. Not about my mom, not about Brenda, not about the mess. We talked about the coffee shop, my projects, difficult suppliers, clients who don't know what they want, normal things. In the end, we agreed to see each other again the following month. Same place, same time. And we did. It became a custom. Once a month we had lunch at his coffee shop. We talked about work, life, anything that wasn't the broken family. It wasn't the perfect father-daughter relationship, nor was it the relationship we should have always had, but it was something, and at least it was honest. 3 months after the disaster at Brenda's birthday, I closed on a house. The deal had been in the works for a while. I had checked options, talked to the bank, and compared neighborhoods, but I always ended up stopping myself because my money was going to fix other people's problems. When I stopped supporting family expenses, I was able to complete the transaction. It was no longer an apartment. It was a real house with a small yard, a garage, and an extra room. It was in a quiet neighborhood, with tree-lined streets and neighbors who waved from the sidewalk. I didn't have children, but I liked the calm of the place. I converted the extra room into an office. I put in a drafting table, a good desk, a comfortable chair, and shelves for my files, blueprints, contracts, and reference books. At night, when I came back from job sites, I would sit there reviewing new projects, correcting budgets, and planning my company's growth. My business started doing better than ever. Without the constant expense of supporting my family's whims, I was able to reinvest. I hired 2 new project managers. I bought better equipment, took on bigger jobs. I stopped feeling like everything I earned was going to please people who never respected me. I didn't know what happened to my mom. I also didn't know where Brenda lived, or if she was still with Patrick. I didn't care enough to find out. They were no longer part of my life. My dad and I continued our monthly lunches. Sometimes we talked about opening a second coffee shop. Sometimes I would tell him about a difficult client or a complicated project. He never brought up my mom or Brenda if I didn't mention them, and I never mentioned them. My phone remained silent, without messages asking for money, without guilt disguised as affection, without criticism of my career, without comments about my personal life, without jokes about my company. At first, the silence felt strange. Then it started to feel like rest. For years, I believed that helping meant enduring. It took losing over $70,000 to understand that it wasn't helping if I was erasing myself. They did know how much everything cost me. They knew the hours I worked, the projects I supervised under the sun, the clients I had to put up with, the nights I spent reviewing budgets. And yet, they looked at me as if I was worth less because my money served them, but my life embarrassed them. I didn't recover everything I paid. Maybe I never will. But I stopped paying for a place where I was never truly wanted. My life started to fit into my own decisions again. My home, my company, and my time were mine again. I kept working, not to prove anything to them, but because that's what I knew how to do. And this time, everything I built stayed with me.